All right, yeah, let's kick it off. So, good day to everyone here. My name's Ken. I'll be, as usual, hosting the community call, and this week we're joined by both Langers and Mav, mainly Langers, I think, to go through the biweekly update. So, good day to both of you.
G'day, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. I'm back in the States after kind of a little bit of a summer holiday for me, so feels good to be back here and maybe not fully caught up with the Discord. There's a lot going on, obviously, in this past week, a lot of exciting stuff. So I feel like I'm maybe a few days behind everything, but certainly everything in the Ethereum ecosystem seems to be booming.
Yeah, you're on a boat, weren't you? You on a boat?
Yeah, we took a cruise through northern part of Europe, Iceland, Scotland, Norway,
Oh, lovely.
Holland. So it was quite nice. Well, maybe we'll start off here a little bit on the bi-weekly here, and one of the first things in there was kind of the R&D work, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about Saturn One and the audits here.
All right, yeah, let's do that. So, with Saturn One, so probably the latest thing with that is we've just released DevNet 4. DevNet 4 is a new DevNet. So if you've used DevNet 3 before, it's a new DevNet, so you'll have to kind of like exit and uh, re-enter into DevNet 4. But at the moment, DevNet 4 is the Houston code. So it's essentially what we have on mainnet today. And the idea behind that is actually probably triggered a lot by what we said in the last community call with you, Ken, and that is, well, we wanted to test the mini pool migration, or at least interaction of mini pools and mega pools a bit more anyway. And so DevNet, we've decided it was going to be DevNet 4. So DevNet 4 is Houston. We've opened it up so that people can create mini pools and kind of have a play around with it before we or set things up before we actually go to migrate it to Saturn. And then what we will do is we will migrate it to Saturn in probably about a week's time. There's a couple of things actually that we've been thinking about this week that might push that out slightly, but I think, yeah, within the next week or two, we'll migrate it to Saturn, and then once we've migrated to Saturn, then people can kind of exit their mini pools and come in as mega pools, and so basically it gives us a chance to first of all test all of that functionality, but also it enables node operators to actually have a first look, really, an early kind of preview of what that process looks like and how it will work, and to get used to that process. So anyone who wants to jump on board and do that, they can do. And then once obviously Saturn is live, they can then test through the new functionality of the mega pools and all of that, all the new functionality in Saturn. The one thing that will also launch pretty much at the same time is the V11 reward tree spec. So essentially, DevNet 4 is code complete. There are audit things, which is probably what I was alluding to a minute ago. There are audit kind of like feedback and that sort of stuff that we need to incorporate into the code. So we may upgrade in place as we go. I'm hoping DevNet 4 is the last DevNet. Depending on what comes out of the audits, we might need DevNet 5. But at this stage, I'm hoping DevNet 4 is the last one, and we can just upgrade in place. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on at the moment. So DevNet 4 is released. and we'll be migrating it to Saturn soon. In terms of audits, yeah, it leads on
Let me,
nicely to audits.
if I could, let me just ask a couple of questions before we switch to the audit
Sure.
conversation for a second, because there were two kind of related to maybe DevNet 4 or perhaps Saturn 1 in general. And if I understand, I think the importance of what you said here is that in DevNet 4, this is one where it's code complete. I mean, minus audit findings here, but it's basically a dry run without doing it on the full test net, right? Where individuals that want to download DevNet 4, they can right now it's operating on Houston, right, or Saturn 0, I guess it would be, right? And they can create mini pools, and then in a week or two, depending upon your timing, you'll upgrade the contract to Saturn 1, and folks can play with their test mini pools on the DevNet and actually try to convert them from mini pools into mega pools. Is that a correct understanding?
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
There were two questions that kind of arose out of that. The first question was kind of asked in the DevNet channel, which is because it's still a DevNet, right? Hoodie Ether works anywhere for it, but how are people supposed to get the DevNet 4 RPL token?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will need to double check with patches. So at this stage, just ask for it in the DevNet feedback channel, and we'll send it to you. I will double check with patches because there might be, I believe there was a faucet command or like a faucet contract and that sort of thing on Hoodie, but it won't be upgraded. It won't be updated to DevNet 4 yet, because patches has been busy with the V11 stuff. So at this stage, just ask for it in the thread, and we will send it to you.
Okay, and then there was a second question that was kind of asked in trading by Blitzio, which wanted some more clarification about the express ticketing queue, and if maybe you could provide some advice about strategy or options or pathways for migrating mini pools to mega pools. And this is something I understand we can actually try out for ourselves in the DevNet once the upgrade occurs in DevNet 4. But can you just help educate us again, because there seems to be a lot of maybe just confusion, or just maybe because we haven't experienced it, and DevNet 4 is going to be our first experience of it. But help us understand those different queuing systems for mini pool conversions.
Yeah, so actually, so we actually have found an issue with the way that the ticketing system works, and that's actually what I was kind of alluding to a minute ago. In that, actually, by then we'll have a kind of like a fix for that, and it'll be deployed with the DevNet 4 stuff. So not too much need to worry about that. But what I'm kind of saying is the process is changing very slightly because of it. It's very likely what you will need to do is once we upgrade to Saturn, there'll be probably like an automated transaction that is off in the background to provision your express tickets. So originally it was done when you kind of like spin up a megapool or actually deploy like your first validator. But unfortunately, that's not very good. It means you need extra capital, essentially. It means you need to deploy new capital to then provision your express tickets for your current capital. So we're changing that slightly so that we just have this kind of function that enables you to provision your express tickets before you deploy any more capital. So what that means is that you don't need any new capital. You can just have your mini pools in place. You call this kind of like provision express tickets call, and your node will probably do it automatically, and then you'll have your express tickets, and then you can then migrate your pools. So it's just a very slight change to the process to make sure that it's as streamlined as possible. But yeah, so once you're provisioned with the express tickets, so there's actually going to be 3 queues, right? So current mini pools that are in the queue will get processed first because they can't exit the queue. They're just sitting in there. So when we go into kind of like Saturn, mini pools that are deposited before the release will get kind of like processed first. Then once they are processed, then the express queue gets processed, and then the standard queue. Now, to be in the express queue, you need to use your express tickets, which you'll get if you're running mini pools on release. If you don't have an express ticket, then it goes into the standard queue. So that's kind of like the priority of the queues. And so yeah, so that's how it works.
Yeah, let me ask some follow-up questions on there that I anticipate others might have too. I guess the first one about the 3 queues and letting the mini pools queue out first, I think makes sense. There was some talk about perhaps closing the mini pool queue ahead of the Saturn 1 launch, trying to let it kind of flush itself out a little bit, let the deposit pool fill up a little bit ahead of Saturn 1 release. Is there still thoughts behind doing that? I know when we talked about it earlier, it seemed to have some support, but people thought it was too soon with the November date. But now we're coming up within T minus 3 months, as you said.
Yeah, obviously there's a bit of a double-edged sword there. You want to capture as much growth as possible, but you also you also want that kind of like benefit. Yeah, I think when we had the discussion, my reflection is the same. It was basically that if we're going to do it, we would probably do it quite close to the release. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm taking I'll take the lead from the community, if you know what I mean. Um, like when's a good time to kind of like do that, or if we do that. Um, from a logistical perspective, there's 2 ways of doing it. Either we can do it as part of a PDAL vote, but that obviously takes quite a while. That'll kind of like take 3 weeks to kind of like go through the PDAL voting process. But because we know, because we can kind of like schedule it, maybe that's okay. The other option is to be directed by the security, is to be able to direct the Security Council. We've never done that before, so I don't know whether that's something that people want to do, but that would technically, that is a way that we can pause node deposits, is via the Security Council. So I think my preference would probably be like a scheduled PDAL vote that we do ahead of time, and then just execute when we execute a few weeks or something before the launch. But I'm open to kind of like suggestion on which way that goes.
Yeah, no, it's a really good thought. I haven't thought through all the ramifications, right? I mean, it certainly has some pros and cons. I mean, obviously the cons is that new deposits aren't going to be staked very readily. Once I mean, the queue would have to clear out. I don't know how far or how long the queue is, right? But we'd have to clear the queue, and then after that, it would start to build some deposits, which would be helpful for Saturn 1 launch and helpful to right now there's I think it's a discount that rETH is trading at in the market compared to the NAV value. So, that would help restore that. But, in terms of timing and when, I don't know. But it seems like, we're T minus 3 months from Saturn 1 launch. So we probably should have a plan sooner rather than later. Because if we're gonna act, we probably need to be acting sooner rather than later.
Yeah, there's currently about 90, 90 mini pools in the queue. So yeah, I mean, I've kind of been putting it in the community's court. Uh, I can definitely raise it in governance and see where we go.
Yeah, and perhaps just educating everyone on the call here is good. But yeah, it definitely seems like we need a we can no longer just sit on the fence. We're either going to have to fish or cut bait, one of the two in that regard. Let me ask another question that I anticipate folks are going to ask, which is, okay, so eventually, one way or the other, right, the mini pool queue is going to go away, and those mini pools will form, and there'll eventually be no more mini pools, and we'll have mega pools, right? And so the mega pools, will have kind of two queues, the express queue and the regular queue. Um, in your description here, it seemed to imply, and I just wanted clarity on here, that the express queue always has priority and then it goes to the regular queue, or is there some metering between both of them, like two, two validators on the express queue and then one in the regular queue, or is it always express queue takes priority? How is that going to work?
So there's express queue gets processed twice as much. I thought the express queue was always first. I will triple check that though. I um, but I thought that also that there is actually like the express queue goes twice as fast as well.
Yeah, I guess that was my question. Is it like two validators out of the express queue and then it goes to one on the regular and then back to two on the express queue, if assuming there's you know uh, people in line in the express queue, or is it just always who's ever in the express queue, you get you're always processed before the first person in the regular queue goes?
Yeah, let me confirm that.
Yeah, I've yeah, my first kind of playing with it will be in DevNet 4, and I can't remember exactly the design in the RPIPs, but I've heard it described differently by different folks. So that's why I think that question will come up there. But yeah, so that seems pretty good. I think those were the questions I had on DevNet 4 that I've seen in the trading chat. So maybe it's worth talking just a little bit about the audits. And I noticed that in the biweekly update, you talked a little bit about Cantina. You want to give an update on their audit, and then kind of when the next auditors are going to key in, and anything you can share from these early audits. I know you usually keep them a little closed doored until each team independently produces their own results, so that way you don't bias any of the later starting audit firms. But what can you share about the audit so far?
Yeah, so Cantina are, I think they're about halfway through their audit. Balsec have already started. They're at least a week or so into a week or two into their audit. Um, and so yeah, so no, they're both doing. Oh, and so okay, Sigma have finished their audit. So Sigma have finished their audit. Cantina are about halfway through, and Balsec are kind of in the first couple of weeks of their audit. Um, no, the audit team's doing really well. Yeah, impressed with the new auditor and Balsec so far. And we're kind of looking forward to seeing what they pick up on. Yeah, it's been going really well actually. So they found a couple of things that are just really good finds in terms of nothing critical yet. I don't think nothing critical. I don't think. But things that are kind of like issues that might have in this basically. They're really good. They've both found some good finds in terms of that space. Um, Yeah, no, we're very, very impressed with Canteen and Basic so far.
Oh, good, good. Any other things in the kind of the R&D side of the house that you want to talk about before we pivot to governance?
No, I think that's about it for now.
Okay, and then the governance side, it seemed like there were a number of things here that were pretty interesting. I guess a couple administrative things was that the PDAL, both the GMC committee and the IMC committee, sent out their respective reports, a treasury report from the IMC, and then a kind of periodic update um, on the funding rounds from the GMC that are out there, and I guess we're in now round 28 of the GMC grants, and it's really focusing a lot on kind of rETH and growing the demand for rETH is what Schifrin was signaling a lot in the conversations. The other news that was in the biweekly was the GMC is starting to incorporate the use of liquidity V2's bold stablecoin in its payments, and so that made the biweekly update. But the other big news that Lingers, I wanted to ask you a little bit about is the PDAL bootstrap finally being disabled. You want to maybe kind of just do a recap of that and kind of what it means and then how it operates now.
Yeah, I almost completely forgot about that. That's like something quite major, and it was just because we've been so busy. Um, so okay, so the PDAL bootstrap. So the PDAL, so both DAOs, the PDAL Protocol DAO and the Oracle DAO, when we first launched the protocol, they had kind of like a bootstrap mode, which and there was basically an account that the team controlled called the Guardian, and what the Guardian could do when if bootstrap modes were on, then the Guardian could uh, use these bootstrap functions to kind of like act as the DAO. And that was obviously during bootstrap mode we um, when it's very early days, and we just wanted to make sure that protocol safety was at the utmost. So the ODAL bootstrap was disabled a long time ago, so almost years ago now. Um, so so the bootstrap functions for the Guardian didn't have any control over the ODAL. The ODAL was kind of like obviously set up with the 16 organizations at the time. We're down to I think 12 now, and so didn't need the ODAL bootstrap anymore. But the PDAL bootstrap was much harder because we had to have some sort of PDAL governance in place, on-chain governance in place. Now, Houston was the release where we released the PDAL governance. But after Houston, there were a couple of things that we couldn't fully use the PDAL governance system. So things like, we had to have everyone's vote power initialized. We had to, there were loads of like little steps basically. The last step was that we had to have a security council in place. Currently, it's just the team on the security council, but hopefully we're working with the community on adding community members to the security council as well. And so that was kind of like the last piece of the puzzle, was adding us onto the security council, and just going through some testing of that, which we tested a couple of weeks ago. And then once we've done all that testing, we were comfortable then turning the PDAL Guardian bootstrap off. So that was what happened 2 weeks ago, I think, something like that. Yeah. And what that basically means is that the DAOs are in full control. You know, the team have we don't have any unilateral control. We've not The PDAO Guardian was the last piece of the unilateral control, and so yeah, so the DAOs are completely in control of the protocol now, um, and yeah, that's that's basically it. So that was kind of like the last vestige of the launch process, and making sure that everything was kind of in place. That's right. Actually, the other thing that we had to do is just make sure that the PDAO governance process was working and secure and all of that sort of stuff. And that's been happening over the last few months, and testing to make sure that on-chain proposals go through and all of that sort of thing. And we were comfortable with that process, and the community were comfortable with that process. So yeah, that's all done, and now yeah, it's fully off. The training, essentially, the best way of saying it is the training rules are completely off now, and we're riding our bike down the street.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is quite an accomplishment to see a protocol kind of start out this and the journey or the origin story of Rocket Pool, and from Dave's early vision to the formation of the team and the development and the community engagement, the kind of conversations about decentralization and DAO governance. And I mean, it's been a very long journey in some ways. It almost seems, I mean, it's a huge accomplishment, but in some ways to me, it sort of seemed a little anticlimactic because it was such a journey to this point, right? But, and kind of a little bit of retrospective reflection on it, it's quite an accomplishment. And so I smiled quite a bit reminiscing about it, and kind of recognizing what we have accomplished over the years here. And so, my congratulations to the team and all the hard work they put in making that happen.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. To there's so much that goes into it, and I would also say that the only reason why we are at this point is because of the first of all, the community coming together as an actual organization, or as a DAO. You know, we're very, very lucky in the Rocket Pool community that we've managed to form a very unique community and organization, and yeah, to be able to drive this forward. There are not many projects that have managed to do that. To actually have people who are passionate enough about the protocol to spend their time, doing protocol things. So yeah, it's an accomplishment. I mean, we've kind of like worked through the technical side of things, but it's an accomplishment across the board in terms of uh, that wouldn't exist without the actual people involved, pushing this forward. Definitely keeping us honest in terms of making sure that governance has been top of mind for a very long time, and we've prioritized it very, very highly. So yeah, no, it's been an interesting, wonderful journey, and hopefully this is a kind of a new era and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, very, very, very well said. Well, let's continue on a little bit to the media and marketing side. And for this, I'd also like to invite kind of Mav to join in the conversations. And certainly the last couple of weeks, wow, what just a busy news cycle in the world of Ethereum on a lot of stuff. But there were a number of things that kind of either directly involved Rocket Pool or are pretty much aligned with it here. And there's a couple in the biweekly I want to call out. The first one I guess is maybe in particular to here in the U.S. was the SEC ruling that LSTs like Rocket Pool's product rETH are not a security. What's kind of the team's thought or reaction to that? Is there a sense of relief, or just kind of like a no duh, or what were you two and the team thinking?
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one because on the one hand, my thinking was, okay, yeah, we knew that about time. But on the other hand, it was surprising to see how quickly things have started to move. I don't know if that's the work of people behind the scenes, working with the administration over there. But a combination of not surprising that the ruling went that way, but also surprising how quickly it's happening. So in any case, great news for staking, but I don't know if it's necessarily, well, it could be a bit of a catalyst for the institutional side, I guess. But for all of those of us, listening to this call, obviously involved in the world of staking one way or another, it's probably not a shock necessarily. Still good to see though.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing that kind of tied into a little bit here is, there's just growing conversations about ETH treasury narratives, right? And not only taking ETH, just the pure asset, but taking now staked ETH and LSTs. What's what has kind of maybe been the team's impression of the conversations regarding, ETH treasuries, and kind of where do you see that benefiting Rocket Pool?
We have a one good example, and I think I saw Benjamin on the call. Maybe he's dropped off, but of course BTCS, where not only are they accumulating ETH along similar lines that we've seen with strategy previously, MicroStrategy with Bitcoin, but of course, as we all know, with ETH there's a lot more that you can do with it. So not only are they solo staking their ETH, they're running nodes with Rocket Pool. They have a relay, they're building blocks, they're using DeFi to get extremely low, or I guess a negative cost of capital, which is quite interesting. The combination of, well, it's the first public crypto company using DeFi on-chain to create kind of new, novel financial solutions is pretty cool to see. And if you haven't listened to the community call with BTCS from, I guess it's just over a week ago now, that's definitely worth a listen. You can find it on Twitter, on X, the recording there, or uploaded to YouTube. And we're also releasing some of the highlight clips. A couple have gone out already, probably one more today and a few more next week with the main points of that conversation. But as we probably know, BTCS is just one of many. I feel like the narrative is something that's been bubbling away for a little while. Certainly for public companies, there's a lot of work that needs to go through before they can take certain actions compared to what we're used to in the relatively unregulated industry of crypto and everything on-chain. So a lot of work kind of gone in behind the scenes, and now we're seeing kind of that explosion of treasury companies, treasury strategies, treasury projects. It sounds like there's a range from the one extreme of public companies all the way through to kind of more, I guess, startup projects that are kind of jumping onto this narrative. But that's what tends to happen in this industry, as well as what we're seeing with node operation. There does seem to be an angle for liquid staking, and that's something that we are definitely looking into. For some treasury companies that prefer the liquid staking side of things, rETH could be a pretty compelling option for them, especially given the recent SEC ruling that we just talked about. Having a sufficiently decentralized liquid staking token from a protocol like Rocket Pool is now going to look a lot more attractive than in the past. And we're certainly in a good position compared to, I'd say, the long tail of less decentralized liquid staking projects that are available out there. So, who knows how this is going to all end up. I think your guess is as good as mine. But right now, it's great to see the kind of attention on Ethereum. Some great things happening in the space, especially from BTCS. And I'm certainly keeping a close eye on everything that's going on. Seems every day there's a lot more news going out about what the different treasury strategies are doing, and new ones popping up. So that's probably, if you're interested, the best place to stay involved and stay up to date with that narrative in the industry. And I'll give a little plug to my friend, the Rocket Pool intern, who is spending a lot of time collating and retweeting relevant news for you over there.
Yeah, I've certainly been enjoying his posts lately, and I guess one of the things, like certainly perhaps it's a combination of either the regulatory clarity, or the signaling by the U.S. government to cooperate in developing regulations in this area, right? The growing narrative for ETH treasuries, right? The work that BTCS has been doing, but certainly the demand for Ether, the asset, is going up, right? And I guess that led to, and I had to do a double read on this thing, right? Although the Ether price is shy of its all-time high, right? It's in striking territory of it, but I guess our ETH price, right? Because of not only the ETH appreciation, but perhaps more importantly the yield that our ETH has been generating, right? I saw a tweet that said that it reached an all-time high in USD valuation. So that was very exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, as I'm sure we all know, that our ETH appreciates in value against ETH in dollar terms. So that will continue to um, peel away from the ETH price. And yeah, if you had staked your ETH back when Rocket Pool launched in late 2021 and held the rETH token until now, in terms of dollar terms, yeah, you're already at an all-time high compared to just holding ETH through that time period. So it really does show the power of, well, it's a bit of a meme, but the power of passive rewards, or rewards stacking up over time, and that's before you kind of consider any of the additional boosts that are available in the DeFi world for people that are into that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Simple compounding can go a very long way. And then last but in no ways least, I saw that in the biweekly MAV you included that the RPL token was listed on two new exchanges. So hopefully that's a positive news for us.
Yeah, exchanges are an interesting one. We're certainly on most, if not all, of the large exchanges by now, in terms of RPL, but there are a very large number of exchanges out there, and I suppose when you see a little bit of excitement around a sector like Ethereum staking, liquid staking lately, you get a couple of the smaller exchanges that will jump in and list RPL. I suppose the interesting thing could be now what happens with rETH. Um, as of today, there are no kind of major exchanges that have listed rETH. I suppose for most of them having their own staking product, like say Coinbase, Binance, and that, it kind of doesn't make sense to list a competitor in that regard. I believe, if memory serves me correct, it was OKX that listed Lido staked ETH. But either way, yeah, not much progress in that area. Again, maybe with everything changing at the SEC and everyone getting excited about liquid staking again. Who knows? Could be some listings in the future. Obviously, Rocket Pool, very famously, we've never dealt with exchanges if they want to list rETH. Good for them. It's not necessarily something we're going out and chasing down. But I would be surprised if, well, I'd say there's a good chance that at least some of the exchanges are keeping an eye on what's going on, and they don't all have their own kind of in-house staking product, so it could make sense for some of the smaller exchanges. Yeah, interesting times. Watch this space.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess, as we kind of start to conclude today's call, I guess I'll ask you the traditional question if there's any other things that we haven't had a chance yet to talk about. But one of the things that I know the team is looking forward to, and myself, is Dev Connect. And I wondered if you might be able to share just a little bit about your plans. I know the weekend before, right, there's the staking rewards conference or summit that happens, and it seems with all the interest in LSTs that might be a critical one. I know after the World's Fair Day, East Staker is planning a seminar or day-long symposium. But what are the team's plans? And I know a lot of the core devs are going to be there, but what's the team thinking around its attendance there for Dev Connect in Buenos Aires?
So good timing. We just got off a stand-up call before this community call, and looks like next week we're going to start booking a few bits and pieces, tickets, flights, hotels, things like that. At this stage, we've decided that some, but not all of the team will be attending. That's because of the proximity to the Saturn upgrade and wanting to have some people kind of on standby available to deal with anything that will pop up. But certainly at DevConnect, we intend to be at the staking gathering, the staking summit, and the DevConnect events themselves. I said at the start of the call, it might have been before a lot of people joined, can't quite remember, that there does seem to be a case of kind of stars aligning for Rocket Pool towards the end of the year. Everything we've talked about already, the Saturn Upgrade coming along. So this DevConnect, this conference, is probably going to be more relevant, more exciting for us. There's a lot of things to talk about on the node operating side, on the liquid staking side, on the institution side. So I think it's going to be a busy time, and I think for a few of us, or at least for me, first time in South America, so that'll be interesting. I'm not looking forward to the jet lag though. I think for my Australian colleagues, it's probably going to be the toughest event to get to in recent memory. Something like 3 flights and well over a day in the air and at airports. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of things happening. So it'd be great to catch up with anyone who's going to be there, and I'm sure we'll throw together a small community gathering or a large one, depending on who's in town. And we'll coordinate that closer to the time once we get a better read of all the different side events that are no doubt going to start popping up. So yeah, hope to see some of the community in Argentina at DevConnect.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things, typically the Dev Connects have been more the crypto native technical folks, right? But I was surprised, the end of June, I went to the permissionless conference, albeit it was in Brooklyn, it was in New York, right? I was surprised. There were very few what I would call crypto native people, and it was all TradFi people. And I don't know if it was just the proximity to Manhattan or perhaps the marketing of the conference in there. And, if I had probably connected the dots fast enough, that would have been, a clear indicator sign of larger traditional finance interest in Ethereum. But it was somewhat interesting to see. It certainly wasn't a like in previous conferences where it felt a little underwhelming, too large of a venue, not enough attendees. This one was a right-sized venue with a lot of people, and even in the blistering heat, almost unbearable heat, there still were people, struggling through it to be there. So, in hindsight, that was probably a very positive sign. It'd be interesting to see how many TradFi people make it all the way down to South America for a technical nerdy conference, but yeah, definitely exciting times for sure.
Oh, that's good to hear, and hopefully a good indication of strong attendance at DevConnect. Certainly, for us in the team, we find that DevConnect, DevCon have more relevance and more importance to us. And I'd say these days, I don't know, ETH Denver is always good, and being in the US, it has pretty good attendance. But yeah, I don't know if it's quite what it used to be. Obviously, the token conferences are not quite our cup of tea either. So yeah, it'd be good to have, I guess, a DevConnect, but there's a difference this year in that it almost seems to be a bit of a DevCon light. I know that's the kind of point of it, but my point being that there is one kind of main venue for a lot of the events, and yeah, of course there's going to be side events spread out across the city, but there is kind of a single central focus. So I think that'll be good for people that are attending to be able to kind of meet and have a sense of community there, rather than being spread out in a dozen or so locations across the city. So it looks like some really good planning going into this one.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So Langers and Mav, any other things that we haven't talked about in today's call that you'd like to share with the community?
No, I don't think I can think of anything else. Go test DevNet 4 is probably the message.
I guess the one thing I didn't ask about is still recognizing the audits are incoming and the technical challenge you were talking about earlier with the activation of the Express queue. But do you think your timeline's still holding good? Are you feeling confident about the launch date?
Yeah, so far there's nothing that has kind of like come out of the audits that we feel is going to delay anything else. Obviously, they've still got more to do and all of that sort of thing, but no, it looks good at this point.
Okay, and any other news about client updates coming or anything in that regard? I'll I won't ask again my question about Mev Boost, but certainly when I see it in person, I'll be twisting somebody's arm about that. But anything on the smart node side of the house?
I need to check actually. I don't think. I think the release with the expiry stuff that's gone out, hasn't it, already? That was a little while ago.
Good question. I don't know. I saw it in the candidate
Yeah.
for DevNet 4. It had expiry option on a couple of the
One
clients that
point
are
1.7 V 1.17 has got some of the history expiry stuff in there. Because there's a new, if you go into the I think it's in the TUI, so you go into like service config. There's now like a pruning mode option, and you can kind of either do history expiry, regular, or archive, and so you can kind of change that around and see the size difference. Obviously, archive is going to be much bigger. Regular is a full node without expiring history, and then history expiry runs a full node with partial history expiry parameters. So essentially taking up less room. So that's definitely an important one in terms of smart node.
And I
And
guess
in there,
just for education of the node operators that are listening, right? I know that many people, the initial spec for a home staking node was a 2 terabyte
yeah,
SSD, right? And we were kind of just before this reaching a point where between the execution and the consensus layer client, it was sort of at 80% or 80 to 90% capacity. So it didn't leave much headroom for expansion or bloating when the pruning couldn't keep up. But now with state expiry, right, it's absolutely fine for any node operator to resync with state expiry turned on and run a much reduced size node, right? It's still fully compatible with node and block production and rocket pool, right? It's perhaps now the preferred choice for our node operators, or am I overstepping there a little bit with that last statement?
I'll have to double check that with Fornex, but I would say yes. I think we've done a bit of testing on the history expiry, and it seems fine for running in the node and everything. So yeah, I think that becomes like the default from now on.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, as always, it's been a great pleasure here. I've been kind of keeping my eye on the trading channel. I don't think I saw any other questions that are in there, but maybe we'll just give it a second to see if anybody here on the call likes to unmute and ask any final questions. But if not, I've truly enjoyed the hour that we spent together here.
Yeah, always great to chat, Ken. Thank you very much for this.
Thanks, Ken. Good to catch up.
All right, well, we'll call it a day. I don't see anybody unmuting or hopping in the chat, but I'll catch everyone else this week back in trading, and for the team, continue on with the audits, and look forward to hearing what's new with your anticipated attendance at DevConnect, and hopefully continued progress here at Saturn One launch.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll definitely keep you across everything.
Thank you all.